Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege. Privilege.
Welcome to the TCMMA podcast. It's your boy Chris Cross, and we got a lot to get into today. A lot of topics. Roman, you got Khamzat Chimaev in the news, along with Robert Whittaker. Belal Muhammad's telling Colby Covington, basically don't even think about it. So a lot of topics to get into. Let's just go down the list before we break them down individually. So Belal Muhammad is already targeting double champion status after UFC 304 title victory. I've got maybe 2 fights left, he says. So we'll break that down even further. UFC 308's Magomed Ankalaev vows to smash every non-title contender. Feel sorry for Alexander Rakic. So they're scheduled to fight. So what does that mean for Alex Pereira? We'll have to wait and see. Also, Arman Tsarukyan calls for interim title fight. Here we go again after Islam Makhachev injury scraps October return. So I'm just about sick of these interim titles. They got to do something. Also, Francis Ngannou to make long-awaited MMA comeback against 6'8" giant after defeats to Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. So, did he actually lose to Tyson Fury? I guess officially he did, but I'm still not sure about that. Chael Sonnen wants UFC to reconsider Muhammad Makhachev. I hope they get it worked out. Yep, and I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. Also, Robert Whittaker reveals he asked for Khamzat Chimaev rebooking. I love disrupting the UFC's plans. So those are some of the main topics today, and there's some good ones. Absolutely some good topics. So let's just jump right into the first one. Belal Muhammad targeting double champion status after winning the UFC title. He says, I got maybe 2 fights left. And at first I saw that, I said 2 fights left. Like, is he getting ready to retire? He just won the belt. There's no way he could be retiring. But he's eyeing the middleweight division. And this is what guys do when they win the title. This is why when Dana White, looks at Alex Pereira and can't believe that he wants to go to heavyweight, and why would he do that? All these guys have aspirations to move up. I mean, they all have aspirations to move up to a higher division. That's just the way it goes. He says to Dan Morgan, well, I've beaten this guy, and this guy. As he said it recently in an interview discussing a potential move to 185 pounds. When I beat Vicente Luque, he was on a 7-fight win streak. Okay. He weighed in as a backup for a title fight. When I beat Gilbert Burns, he was on a 2-fight winning streak. He was a #1 contender at the time. Sean Brady was 15-0 when I beat him. All these guys had big wins, huge wins. And he's got a good point here. I mean, I didn't even consider Belal as a middleweight fighter, but he's making some good points. He continued. It tells me that I've got maybe 2 fights left, and then I can start talking about double champ status. I've already beat all these guys inside the top 10. All right, I'm not necessarily in agreement with him. I think there's a lot more than 2 fights. I mean, you got Usman still out there. He's talking about potentially fighting. You got Shavkat Rakhmonov out there. He's talking about potentially fighting. And that's not even to mention guys like Ian Gary. I mean, there's just a lot of guys in this division. Colby Covington, who he's scoffing at, right? It's just not going to be that easy. This division is deep. It's not like a few other divisions where you can beat a few guys and then there's no one else left, which is kind of what's happening in the light heavyweight division for Alex Pereira. Speaking of which, Magomed Ankalaev vows to smash every non-title contender. Feels sorry for Alexander Rakic. Right? So as he said on Twitter, now everybody knows I'm not fighting for the title and will fight Rakic in Abu Dhabi. Ankalaev wrote on Twitter, whoever Mick Maynard gives me, I will smash, so that they can no longer deny me if I do my job impressively. I feel sorry for whoever is going to fight me from now going forward. So he's talking the right game, right? But as Robert Whittaker alluded to as well, the UFC just for some reason, doesn't like Magomed Ankalaev fighting for the title. Why? Because when he had the opportunity to win it against Jan Blachowicz, they fought to a draw. It was a very lackluster fight. Everybody came away upset because the fight wasn't great and nobody won. At least if he would have won or lost, it would have helped him, even though it was a terrible fight. But then you see a terrible fight and it leads to a draw. People aren't happy. So Magomed Ankalaev has some work to do. And what does this mean for Alex Pereira? There's like literally nobody for him to fight right now. What's he going to do, fight Jamal Hill again? I don't think that's going to happen right now. So Alex Pereira's on hold, but the UFC can't afford for him to be on hold too long. He's like the main star in the UFC right now. I mean, you still got Conor McGregor, who may or may not return. They can bring him in at any point if he wants to fight. It's always going to make some money. But right now, Alex Pereira is the guy in terms of champions. You know, you got Islam Makhachev too, but Pereira's the guy, man. This guy's fought 3 times every year for the past 3 years, so how long can they hold him out? That's the question. But Magomed Ankalaev isn't fighting for the title anytime soon. Now, an interesting development, Arman Tsarukyan calls for interim title fight against Islam Makhachev as injury scraps October return. He told Submission Radio, so my manager told me I'm going to fight in October versus Islam. And then he said to you see, like that, he got injured. And now they moved that fight to December or maybe next year. So he wants to fight instead for the interim title. So that's you know, they keep bringing up these interim titles, and it's like the problem is you have some of these champions like John Jones who just want to sit out for more than a year. And there's got to be some type of rule set up, and there is, but they don't really follow it, that you got a year to defend the belt. But instead of taking the belt away, Jamal Hill, in fact, gave up the belt. So did Yuri. Instead of taking away the belt, they just moved the interim title situation, and it confuses things. You know? Goes on to say, so of course it's sad because I already started training very hard, and I'm in shape, and I thought we're going to fight in October. But it is what it is. So if it's December for me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to wait and train as much as I can. So he's kind of going both ways, saying he'll wait and he'll fight for interim title. So we'll see how that plays out. More to come, of course. Francis Ngannou to make long-awaited MMA comeback against 6'8" giant after losing 2 boxing matches, right? He's going to fight Renan Ferreira in the PFL. Renan is a great fighter, he said. I have been watching him for years. Said Ngannou. I have been studying him for years. In fact, I've been telling people to watch this guy. And, you know, of course, Ngannou's going to hype this guy up. And the thing is he suffered 2 defeats now, but he's coming back to MMA. It's not a UFC setting. You would think it would be a little bit of a downgrade. But because he's been out of the octagon for 2 years, I say this is probably going to be an interesting fight to watch. In fact, it might be the first PFL prediction that we do, along with the Cyborg fight. So I'm looking into that. And that's not going to happen until, October or November, so we got plenty of time. But Ngannou is back. It just won't be for the UFC. It's unfortunate. But it is what it is. At least we get to see Ngannou fight once again. And that kind of helps us roll into the next story where Chael Sonnen says he wants UFC to reconsider Muhammad Makhachev. I hope that they get it worked out. As he said in his YouTube channel, there was one comment made by Dana, and Dana White was polite. He didn't call him out. He didn't embarrass him. He did an extremely broad stroke that he's difficult to deal with the matchmakers. So this is a very tough subject for the UFC because you can't afford to have legitimate fighters, regardless of the drama you got to deal with, go to other promotions and start winning titles to where now they say, well, this guy in this promotion's better than the UFC champion. And then you start having competition, which is ultimately what the world of MMA probably wants, but then you start moving into the role of boxing, right? Back in the day, early 1900s to 1960s, 70s, you always knew who the champions were. But as they splintered into multiple promotions, 4, 5, 6 different belts, and those guys aren't fighting, you don't know who the champion is, and we never get to see the best fight the best. So the UFC has to tread very carefully here, and I really think they need to keep Muhammad Makhachev. And maybe that's their plan. They're just giving him a hard time now to bring him to where they want him to be, right? And that's to come in and fight, try to finish guys, stop all the annex, even though we love the annex, but just kind of bring him into a normal UFC setting where let's let the fight do the talking. type of thing. Robert Whittaker reveals he asked for Khamzat Chimaev rebooking. I love disrupting the UFC's plans. He tells MMA Arcade. Unfortunately, the business is not completely run on merit, Whittaker said. A lot of it is, but there's a lot of times and moments when it's just not. Chimaev is a hard fight. He's obviously a big draw, especially there in Abu Dhabi. He's done the welterweight thing. He's done the middleweight thing. So he's a draw. And I think the UFC, story-wise, wants to see Chimaev get a shot at the champion. They want to see Chimaev up the top of the ladder. They want to see him in that picture. But I love disrupting their plans. I love derailing their stories. And that's why I took the fight. I asked for the fight. It wasn't offered to me. And again, you got to respect this guy, Robert Whittaker. And I found out today, I didn't realize, and hopefully I'm right, but it's a 3-round fight, which ultimately favors Khamzat. Right? Because now you can really go for it in the first and second round. And, you know, I mean, if you get tired, you get tired. It's only 3 rounds. I like to go with Burns' fight. You know, if it's a 5-round fight, I think that plays with Khamzat's head. Let's wait for a 5-rounder later. Let's get the 3-round in and out and get a big victory. And I think that definitely favors Khamzat Chimaev in here. I expect Khamzat to come in and dominate this fight early and hopefully get the finish. But we got a lot more to talk about in terms of this fight. It's going to be very exciting. I cannot wait to see Khamzat smash Robert Whittaker. Please believe it. I mean, this is the fight that we've all been waiting for. It's a fight that has to happen, and it's a fight that's going to happen, right? So keep leaving your comments, keep talking trash one way or the other, but I can tell you now, you can't say anything when Khamzat wins because of what Robert Whittaker did to Aliskerov. He just smashed Aliskerov in under 2 minutes. Just ridiculous. So we know Robert Whittaker right now is at the top of his game. And when he loses, I don't want to hear any excuses. Any excuses whatsoever. The bottom line is Robert Whittaker wants Khamzat. Khamzat said yes. For those of you to say he's potentially ducking fights, he doesn't want to fight and all this, Khamzat wants to fight. You know? The 2 fights he pulled out of, it was due to sickness. That's it. It's just due to sickness. But I expect him to be there for this one. And it's interesting. They have a bet going. One of the top bets right now is not who wins the fight. It's whether Khamzat will show up to the fight. I mean, it's crazy. Will Khamzat Chimaev show up to the fight? That's the big question that is being asked right now. And I hate to say it, but it's a worthy question. You know, we got to see him in action. You know, so if he shows up to the fight, that's the big question. And then when he gets there, what's he going to do? Right? How's this thing going to play out? But first he has to get there. And even though it's funny, the bet, it does make a lot of sense. Because there's going to be some people that are betting that he doesn't make it just because of what's happened in the past. So we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But these are some of the big topics we want to get in here quick and fast today and get some of the top headlines to you. You know, to round out this week as we get ready for UFC Vegas 95 and then UFC 305 next week, which is going to require a lot of work and a lot of focus on that specific event. So let's get Khamzat in here. Let's get Alex Pereira in here. Let's get Islam in here. Arman Sarukian, Francis Ngannou. Chael Sonnen is going on and on about Muhammad Makhachev. I love it. I love it. So these are the main topics. So that's a wrap. For now, this is your boy Chris Cross. Hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, have a great day and God bless. As always, peace.